For my Wonderful Words Workbook, go to www.mrsglasson.com or follow the link below the video for all the details and sample pages. Enjoy! Hello, it's Mrs Glasson and welcome to Wonderful Words beginning with S. Wonderful words like surreptitious or even somnolent and supine and sibilant. Nice and soothing. So, come on students, let's get going. Without further ado, wonderful words beginning with S. So, the first word, surreptitious, and I remember being very impressed when Surreptitious came home on one of my own children's vocabulary lists. So they used to have fantastic vocabulary lists actually from their primary school, and surreptitious was one that they had to learn when they were in year 5. So surreptitious meaning sneaky and not wanting to draw attention to oneself. So they can be dealt with separately, I suppose, but also together. So I suppose sometimes when you're sneaky, you don't want to draw attention to yourself. And when you're not wanting to draw attention to yourself, it could be because you're being a bit sneaky. And so let's just look at the not wanting to draw attention to oneself definition for now. 2 synonyms, furtive and clandestine. Incidentally, I've just discovered, students, that I've been mispronouncing that all my life. It's actually clandestine. And not clandestine, as I had been pronouncing it. And I can't even blame my dad for that. But this is how I found out. And you know how much I love to do this. But I found a slightly different site this time. It's the Cambridge Dictionary YouTube site, which is different from the one that I've shown you that I usually use, because I did Google British English as well. So that can be quite important because it can have a bearing on how a word is pronounced, whether it's British English or American English, as I know, having taught American English for 3 years in Japan. But let's have a look at this. Listen.
Clandestine. She undertook several clandestine operations for the agency.
There you go, clandestine. And she undertook several clandestine operations for the agency. And here we have a couple of examples of my own. They swam clandestinely at night in the hotel pool, and he cast a furtive glance at the clock. So the second one, imagine room 8, and I'm going off onto one of my tangents, students. You can't imagine that, can you? And 17 minutes into an explanation in response to a perfectly simple question, you can imagine one of my students casting a furtive glance at the clock. He must have been thinking, oh my goodness, I hope this explanation goes on for another 17 minutes because Mrs Glasson is always so very, very interesting when she goes off on her tangents. And the first example there, I hope my own children are watching this and feeling a little bit guilty. For this is the picture that was taken the day after they swam clandestinely at night in the hotel pool. And I was summoned to the reception desk by the manager to explain why my children had been swimming clandestinely at night in the hotel pool. Don't worry, they were in their 20s at the time, everybody. I didn't kind of just go to bed and cast my children aside to go swimming recklessly in the pool. But all I can say was that they obviously weren't clandestine enough, and it took my best teacher voice and several moments in character as Mrs Glasson to extricate us from the trouble that we were in. So there we have 2 examples. They swam clandestinely at night in the hotel pool, and he cast a furtive glance at the clock. such naughty children. Anyway, so now back to the tutorial. If we are to put that definition back, sneaky, then perhaps we can also make use of nefarious as a synonym for surreptitious. So if you do something sneakily, if there's the impression that there's something underhand about it, then you are being nefarious. That wonderful word that I taught you in Wonderful Words beginning with N. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, students. Don't miss out. Here are some lovely words: somnolent, meaning sleepy, and supine, lying down. Alexa, play my somnolent playlist.
Your playlist, Somnament, on Amazon Music.
Alexa, stop. So, somnolent, meaning sleepy, even Alexa knows, which goes with supine, meaning lying down. And here is a synonym for supine. And I do love that word, recumbent. And of course, who can possibly look at that word without thinking of Lady Bracknell in The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, when she says, "Rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent posture." In fact, let me just find out exactly what she says. I do love that place so much. "Mr. Worthing, arise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous." The Importance of Being Earnest. Everybody should read that if they haven't already. It's a seminal work by Oscar Wilde. And at Sutton Grammar, I used to have many quotations from Oscar Wilde. Quotations, not quotes, but that's something I'll discuss in words beginning with Q, around my classroom. And do Google him. Students, parents, teachers, Google Oscar Wilde and look at his interesting quotations. And make sure you read The Importance of Being Earnest. I think we read it at Lady Margaret in Year 8. I remember, actually. And I taught it to my Year 8 class at Sutton Grammar. I think they'd finished something quite early and I just couldn't resist. I found The Importance of Being Earnest in the English cupboard and I brought the whole pack of them into my classroom, the whole set of them. And it was at the end of the summer term, and what a marvellous time I had. I don't know what the students thought of it, but what a marvellous time I had teaching The Importance of Being Earnest. Read it and certainly watch it. It's often on. Go and watch it at the theatre. I've seen many fantastic productions of it. In fact, I think it's on in Windsor quite soon, and I will be going to watch yet another production of The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. Semi-recumbent posture. But coming back to these two words here, somnolent and supine, I do particularly like them. The other day, a former colleague of mine was texting me saying, what you doing, Glasson? Sorry, that's my PE teacher's voice. And I replied that I was somnolent and supine on my sofa. And he responded, and I'm just doing his voice now, "Do you ever stop being an English teacher, Glasson?" And my response, no. Somnolent, supine, sofa. That is an example of sibilance. So that is sibilant. So you could say that I was somnolent, supine, and sibilant on my sofa. And English students, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that sibilance is a key literary term. It's a key example of what kind of imagery? There are 5 kinds of imagery in literature. Yes, auditory or oral imagery, A-U-R-A-L. And all of those terms are taught in lesson 5 of the foundation course. So imagine being in year 4 and being prepared so well that when you turn up for live tuition, you know wonderful grammar, you know fantastic vocabulary, and of course you know these key literary terms, which will make you better at comprehension and creative writing. Likewise, and they're not the same course, but obviously I have to revise the Key Stage 2 syllabus for the revision course. So in that course's lesson 5, I will revise all of these essential literary terms. So if you haven't been taught them, and you really should have been taught them, then at least before you do your 11 plus, you can rest assured that you will have been taught them and taught them really well. So key to comprehension and creative writing. And as I've said before, you don't need to be doing the 11 plus to enjoy my courses. You just need to love English and be willing to learn. And I will do the rest. Such fun. It was fantastic to be able to bring in a bit of Oscar Wilde there. A truly amazing writer and a genius. And one of the many writers behind me who have helped me to elevate my lexis, to make my diction more dexterous, and to make my English exemplary. I hope you enjoyed Wonderful Words beginning with S, and I will see you next time, students, with Wonderful Words beginning with T. For the Wonderful Words Workbook, go to www.mrsglasson.com or follow the link below the video for all the details and sample pages.